That's good. Yeah, we can see that, Alex. That'll come through.
Excellent. Brilliant. Thank you very much. So, I said thank you and hello, and thank you for joining us this morning. And thank you to APM for inviting me to speak at this week's conference. I'm Alex Richards from PA Consulting, and I lead PA's Adaptive Edge proposition across the public sector and defence, where I've been delivering programs and complex projects for over 20 years. This morning, I'm going to talk about adaptive delivery and what that means for project success and for our teams in the future. I'm going to be looking at this in three parts. Firstly, what is adaptive and why it's important. Secondly, the two key components of adaptive delivery as we see it at PA, to provide a bit of context for what that means for project teams in the future. And then thirdly, I'll be looking at what that means for the characteristics of our teams. If you've got any questions, please add them to the Q&A chat. I have left some time specifically at the end to be able to answer those. So, where does adaptive come from? Right, excellent, technology is working. So where does adaptive come from and why is it important? So at PA, we work with a large number of organisations across the world to deliver change and transformation. Adaptive is something that has been of growing interest and becoming increasingly important over the past 2 to 3 years in particular. Generally, we've been noting over the past decade that delivering has just become harder for everybody. Doesn't matter which organisation you're in or which country you're in. Organisations are struggling to crystallise a coherent vision for their future that reimagines who and what they are. We've taken our understanding and insights from over 30 major organisations in 9 different countries across public services, policing and defence, and we've brought that together with our learnings from the private sector and from working with some of the largest technology providers in the world, and we've consolidated that into adaptive. We've not only developed it, but more crucially have tested it in demanding environments to ensure that adaptive is both actionable and also delivers the outcomes that are needed. And we're seeing this as being something that's universal. Our engagement covers countries from the UK and Denmark to the Middle East and Australia, and it's across sectors. This started out for us as something within policing and defence, but we have seen it move into international central banking, local government, not-for-profit, and even into the supermarket chains. So the key premise for adaptive is that complex, disruptive change is now the new norm. And if predictions on trends are correct, the world is going to become more complex and we're going to experience more disruption. Addressing this reality requires fundamentally different approaches that organisations can respond to the challenges they face in a timely manner. And there are 3 components why this is the case. Firstly, the strategic context we operate in is going through significant instability. There is a heightened competition for global and regional power, and this extends into trade, where international agreements are being disbanded and defaulted on, with new agreements emerging as alliances change. COVID has impacted international supply chains and energy supply, and we're seeing labour shortages in key roles within hospitality, logistics and healthcare. The consequences of these realities are playing out in real time, and we're starting to see that the impacts are far-reaching and starting to cascade. At the same time, the digital world continues to converge with the physical, where cyber attacks are having real-world impact. Even cyber criminals are admitting that their actions are unintentionally too disruptive, such as with the Colonial Pipeline in the US earlier this year. Secondly, within this strategic context, organisations are finding an internal disconnect between who they need to be and who they actually are. The organisational structures and governance that have served them well in the past century don't operate quickly enough to maintain pace in today's world and cope with the disruption. It takes too long to create and communicate strategy, and it takes too long for decisions to be made and communicated. Organisations are also burdened with escalating technology costs and increasing technical debt. There are organisations who are spending 70, 80 and even 90% of their technology budgets just keeping the lights on with no headroom to invest in the future. The legacy estates also host siloed systems that inhibit businesses from joining the dots, with analysts spending over half their time scraping data together in Excel from multiple systems. And within all this, there is a fear of failure and the unknown, as this world is changing. Managers are equipped for a world that operates at a slower tempo with greater certainty and different rules. And finally, increasingly sophisticated technology continues to be commoditized at a price point that is affordable to most citizens in their home. This means that anyone can readily develop their own highly sophisticated capabilities. And because technology is commoditized and accessible, capability can be created at a pace of weeks, if not days. Collectively, this is a truly wicked problem and has led us to come to the conclusion that organizations must radically and urgently reimagine how they operate and deliver change and transformation. Traditional program and project approaches are no longer fit for purpose, as the fundamental assumptions they're built on no longer apply. And Agile isn't appropriate for all types of problem. Often we need to solve complex problems with a combination of approaches. This means moving traditional concepts of strategy apologies, just having a few technology problems here. So this means moving traditional concepts of strategy and delivery as detailed long-term planning exercises, aiming to provide certainty to a concept that embraces change, exploiting principle-based decision-making as changes occur, and ensuring continual strategic fit with the organization's purpose. To be able to embrace this environment, organizations need to accelerate insight-led decision-making so that they can maintain relevance and cadence with that environment. They need to instill a permanent positive restlessness that sees change as an opportunity to thrive, not a threat to the existing ways of doing business or a risk to project delivery. And speaking of project delivery, where possible, they need to step up the pace to realize value from investments as quickly as possible. Our work on adaptive delivery has identified two delivery constructs to achieve this. The first is fast-track mobilization, the ability to mobilize new initiatives at pace. Our research has shown in all cases that successful fast-track mobilization has come down to one single measure, and that's earning the right to deliver through trust. This means that teams must, at pace, demonstrate four behaviors. The first is reliability, and this is about setting, managing, and delivering on expectations. There's often significant uncertainty and ambiguity when mobilizing in complex and changing environments. However, demonstrating stakeholders that they have the confidence in the team is critical. The second is credibility, demonstrating how value will be created and then delivering that value. It's important for stakeholders to be able to believe in the project team and that they're credible, and that they can grapple with both the simple and complex issues at hand. The third is intimacy. This is building relationships with the full range of stakeholders to understand their issues, perspectives, and priorities. The fourth is self-orientation, orientating towards delivering outcomes for external stakeholders. These are the people and organizations who will determine whether delivery is successful or a failure. And therefore, trust is essential because the time available to build and evidence confidence is significantly reduced. The second construct is sustained adaptive delivery. Once we've mobilized, we need the ability to continually navigate the journey through the constant change. Here, teams need to organize themselves around a transformation management office. Traditionally, program and project offices have supported the development of multi-year plans and then managed them by exception. Transformation Management Office has a different focus that makes it optimized for delivering in turbulent environments. It continually works on how to best deliver value. It assesses the business priorities, understands the changes needed to design and architect to realize benefits, and modifies the change journey in real time. All of this is enabled by strategies to make high quality decisions in uncertain and ambiguous situations. Often, teams are faced with working out how to deliver the best of a bad set of options with limited and often bad data to go on, scarce resources and demanding customers, and therefore understanding how to make decisions using different approaches that are sometimes counterintuitive and are based on a combination of expert insight, research, broad experience, and intuition. This is all underpinned by strong leadership and the ability to take the team and stakeholders through the journey. And it will be an uncomfortable journey because we're not just talking about change, but continuous change that requires a different mindset and views change as a constructive opportunity to be embraced. I've talked about why we see an imperative for adaptive delivery and the two key constructs in undertaking adaptive delivery. But what does this really mean for our teams? By its very nature, adaptive delivery teams will be different for every program and project. So I'm going to give a short overview of how we characterize teams that are successful and the four primary attributes. Each of these attributes need to be looked at through the different lens of how teams, leaders, and team members think, feel, and act. The first attribute is sense making, and this means understanding strategic context, what's changed, how the environment is changing, and why. This is absolutely critical to navigating through uncertainty and ambiguity. It provides the foundation to start setting the rules of the game, is the basis for making high-quality decisions, and enable the team to assess when the project needs to make a minor change or a wholesale pivot. To achieve this, teams need to be able to tap into different data sources to develop a wider view of complex patterns and issues. They need to promote a healthy paranoia of new themes and emerging trends and actively question what they mean at a strategic and operational level, testing out this emergent thinking internally and externally. They need to engage a broad range of people in sense making and be aware of biases that may limit views. They need to place value on sharing divergent views and ideas and demonstrate the value of moving beyond old concepts and rigid ways of working that do not fit new and emerging challenges and paradigm shifts. They need to experiment and take action to test assumptions and understand the issues by considering multiple perspectives. Leaders, which are program managers and project managers, must shift their style from command and control to collaborative problem solving with those closest to or affected by the issues. The second attribute is empowerment. Here, team leaders, specifically program and project managers, need to embody the vision and develop the knowledge and the skills in the wider team and wider stakeholders to support this vision. They need to structure their programs and projects to enable autonomy, moving decision making to the lowest possible level and removing unnecessary constraints, whether they are people, processes, the work environment, or technology. The team need to understand personal, individual, and team capability in order to delegate key decisions, provide the appropriate level of autonomy, and encourage responsibility. The team also need to help wider stakeholders to engage with the vision and understand what it means for them and how they can contribute. The result is a team that individually and collectively adopt a coaching approach, regularly checking in with people to check energy, confidence levels, and where appropriate, support development when needed. They use every experience to increase the learning across the team, sharing knowledge, skills, experience, and information. The third attribute is collaboration. The first step is recognizing and challenging preconceptions, biases, and ego to collaborate more openly and effectively. Teams need to be truly cross-functional and diverse to ensure the best skills mix for the task at hand and to ensure processes are in place to encourage interaction with all stakeholders. Program and project managers need to cultivate empathy for different views, demonstrating inclusive leadership, and as a result, build value-based relationships. Individuals in the project team will contribute their specialism to add value to the project and can tap into external support to enable sharing and joint working to tackle shared challenges. At the same time, the strongest cross-functional teams will have team members who are multi-potentialists, equipped in more than one skill set or function. This enables both empathy within the team and resilience for when people are out of the office. Program and project managers need to role model compassionate leadership to create a culture of collaboration and support. They proactively network and connect people with diverse skill set and knowledge to draw on the widest available pool of talent and ideas. The fourth attribute is innovation. The team need to explore opportunities to think and behave differently, experiment and challenge accepted norms. They prize innovation as a key driver of success, rewarding knowledge and insights gained from successes and failures. They put time and energy into new ideas, demonstrating lateral thinking and thereby encouraging others to do the same. The team encourage individuals from broader stakeholder groups to share ideas and work jointly in projects as one team. This requires a conscious investment to build in time for reflection on what worked well and normalizes failures to support a collective growth mindset. Program and project managers need to be responsible for accelerating innovation and opportunities identified by the frontline business and for pulling innovation through to operational capabilities as quickly as possible. This means breaking down and structuring work into packages that can be paused or stopped at discrete level to enable value-adding innovation to take priority. These attributes of sense-making, empowerment, collaboration, and innovation are not new and feature in many management philosophies. What is different here is the context of continuing navigating to value and continually assessing how to create value. They exist in a world where delivery must be continuously and actively managed on a daily and weekly basis. It means a wholesale rethinking of how we approach program and project management, reassessing some of the fundamentals that underpin our traditional methodologies that have become second nature habits in our day-to-day work. That's all I wanted to say for this morning. And I think now we are on to questions, Nick.
Thank you very much, Alex. So we are going to be waiting for some questions to tip through. I think you've talked about the agile mindset, and that is a very important mindset to get into. How do you link that to agile project management as a discipline? Do you feel that they are intrinsically linked, or do you feel that you can, you need to get the agile mindset first before you can endeavour on actually running agile projects in an agile way?
So from my experience is that I think we need to think broader than just agile. And why do I say that? Agile has a lot of rituals and processes that have developed that are, they are very, very applicable to a lot of different problem types. A lot of the work that we're doing needs a combination of approaches to solve those problems, to address them. And it's about having a mixed economy of methodologies and knowing when is the best time to apply which one. So Agile is definitely a contribution to that mindset, but it's actually understanding when to approach the right problem with the right style, with the right methodologies, with the right approaches, and how do we constantly keep on top of that mixed economy.
Thank you. Another one that's come through. If you could give one piece of advice to someone who might be managing virtual teams for the first time, what would that advice be?
Yeah, so it's very easy for people to feel excluded. There's I'm working on a number of projects at the moment, and we work with a combination of in a very hybrid way. So we work predominantly virtually, but we also have a number of meetings sort of once a week where we actually do that within the office. We are, desk base is still being managed. We're still only operating at about 75 capacity, which means that not everybody can come into those sessions. And it's about, as I think the previous speaker was talking about, how to make sure you've got that right level of engagement. How can we actually bring people who aren't in the office at a particular time into those engagements. So to get that hybrid virtual physical mix right, being very conscious and deliberate about when we are signposting time that is for the team to look after ourselves. So, first thing on Monday morning, we will have a get together and a chat, and that is purely at a human level. It's actually got nothing to do with work. And then clearly signposting what we need to get out of all of the sessions, making sure that we are also keeping on top of people as individuals. I'm personally, I'm more of an introvert, shall we say, than an extrovert. So having my own personal time is great. It gives me a lot of time to reflect and think about things before I sort of energize and move forward. But at the same time, we have a lot of people who are extroverts and are really struggle without that human engagement, and that's how they get their energy. So being really conscious about what people's needs are and what their personal preferences are, and then being able to be very deliberate about how we do those engagements to get people engaged. I'd also suggest understanding how you can use the tools that are out there. There are a lot of online tools that have got a lot of prominence at the moment, and have done over the past 18 months. Using those to get people engaged so that everybody is actively taking part within meetings makes quite a difference. It's the difference between a successful meeting and a meeting that's a bit flat. And I've noticed making sure that you are keeping on top of that. We've literally this week on Monday sort of re-energized that within one of our projects, and there was a really noticeable difference between some of the meetings that we had where we weren't getting out what we needed, and sort of bringing people into being involved within those sessions with tools like Mural that are out there that allow everybody to contribute within in real time.
Thank you for that, Alex. That's really good. Another question that's come in is, do we need to rethink governance and the role of the PMO in an enterprise employing agile, even virtual teams?
So I guess I'm starting from the premise that we need to look at how organizations operate. If you look, and I mean that in a wholesale sense, if you look at starting to deliver more agile, more adaptive projects within organizations, the behaviors that we need and some of the fundamental assumptions that sit within it, and you start pulling on that thread. Let's just take business cases in finance. Traditionally, especially if you work in government, business cases have to follow Treasury rules. They want a very, very predictable and certain outcome for the investment, which is not unreasonable. And they want to understand what benefits profile are and how those benefits are going to be realized over time, and that we're actually going to be delivering what we need. There's a particular project I'm working on at the moment where it is tremendously difficult to be able to give the confidence over the specific benefits we are going to be realizing when, because we operate in a very turbulent environment. We know that we can deliver a very specific class of business capability, and we will continuously make that relevant to what the business needs at any point in time. However, we can't tell you what 5-10 years is going to look like. Telling you in a year, 18 months, maybe 2 years is pretty tricky, but we are doing our best. But that then means that how we start looking at finance, how we manage the organizations, how we look at controls, how we look at how organizations are governed, and how they then start, you come back and start looking at how we do strategy, how we approach strategy as what is traditionally a very planned exercise over multiple years. All of that starts becoming questionable, and we need to start moving on to looking at concepts of how do we provide more principle-based approaches where we can deal with the changing environment and changing needs, but we've got a rule book to play by so that we can make a good decision and we can be consistent and confident in the outcome that we're going to make.
Thank you. We've got a couple more, I think, at the time before we draw this to a close. So actually, probably going back to the one bit of advice you'd give to managing a virtual team. It's a slightly thorny question, maybe slightly beyond project management sort of space, but how do you actually manage performance in a virtual team, and with an agile mindset and adaptive type approach? There are always going to be times when we're going to have to look at performance management and understand that.
Yeah, so again, this is quite challenging, but I guess it comes back to actually having faith and confidence in the teams. My personal view is that one of the few good things that's come out of the pandemic is that organizations, I think, have actually learned that they can have confidence in their people to deliver. It's amazing some of the work that's happened over the past 18 months. The ability for organizations to pivot, to continue delivering, the level of resilience that organizations have shown, that is truly through their staff and their employees, has been really phenomenal. And the extrapolation of that is that we can trust that we should be measuring people on the outcomes and their contributions, rather than how people have often been measured about the amount of time that the inputs and the amount of time that they spent working. If I can deliver the same outcome in a day that it might take traditionally a week to do, actually, do I really care as an employer, as a project manager? I think it moves our focus much to about people's outcomes and how they're interacting and their contribution, rather than necessarily input focused and the amount of time and effort they are putting into things.
Yeah, thank you. I probably tend to agree with that. I think it's got to be a way. It's a cultural leap, and it actually links quite nicely into the last question that we've got, which also links into a session that I know we're talking about after the break. So the question is a fairly simple one, but a tricky one to answer. Do you have any top tips for building trust in the virtual world?
So I don't know necessarily about the virtual world. I'll just talk about my own experience and my own philosophy, and that is about being true to yourself, and about being honest with your project team and your stakeholders. I have worked with broadly the same group of clients and both people within PA, but also in broader sort of organisations that operate in my world. And the trust has come down to being honest with people, to demonstrating that you can deliver, and that it takes time to build up. But that is the thing that leads to people coming to me and coming to my teams to deliver for them. If there is a difficult problem, if there's something that's complex and complicated, people will come to me because they know I'll be honest with them, I'll be straight with them, I will deliver to the best of my team's ability, with their intents and with their interests at heart. And I think that is truly the only way to build up trust.
Thank you very much, Alex, and thank you very much for taking the time to answer those questions. That was really, really good. If you do have any thoughts on Alex's speech, we have got the facilitated discussion this afternoon, and we can have some more discussion around these topics then. So thank you very much.